The United States has the strongest military in history. It fields more aircraft carriers than the rest of the world combined, and its defense budget is larger than the next 10 nations put together. And yet, across Washington, from the Pentagon to Capitol Hill, military planners and strategists are quietly asking a deeply disturbing question. What if the next war is unwinnable? Because today, America isn't facing one single enemy. It's facing many. It's facing a resurgent China in the vast expanse of the Pacific. It's contending with Russia's aggression in Eastern Europe. It's managing an unpredictable Iran across the Middle East. And it is navigating a growing web of alliances that could pull the United States toward confrontation on multiple fronts simultaneously. The question isn't just about strength anymore. It's about capacity. Is America preparing for a type of war that no superpower in history could truly win? For decades, U.S. military strategy was built on one fundamental assumption. America would never have to fight a major war on multiple fronts at the same time. This doctrine shaped everything. During the Cold War, the singular focus was the Soviet Union. Every policy, every weapon system, every strategic calculation was centered on that one overarching threat. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and 9/11s, the focus shifted to counter. The enemy was diffuse, but the mission was clear. But today, that era is definitively over. The Pentagon now openly discusses the reality of a multi-theater conflict. This isn't just a theoretical exercise for war colleges anymore. It's a core component of active planning. The possibility of facing major powers simultaneously in different regions of the world has moved from a worst-case scenario to a plausible future. The strategic comfort of focusing on one enemy at a time has evaporated, replaced by a complex, interlocking map of global tensions that all demand American attention, resources, and military readiness. This isn't the world of the past. It's a new, more dangerous strategic environment. Of all the challenges, China is now officially labeled America's primary long-term threat, or what the Pentagon calls the pacing threat, and the reasons are clear. Its navy has grown into the world's largest by sheer number of ships. Its sophisticated missile forces are specifically designed to target the core of American power projection, U.S. bases, and aircraft carriers. And its massive economy continues to fuel a rapid and technologically advanced military expansion, closing the qualitative gap with the West year after year. The most dangerous flashpoint in this rivalry is Taiwan. If China were to move on Taiwan, the United States would face a terrible, almost impossible choice. It could intervene, risking a full-scale war with a nuclear-armed superpower, a conflict with consequences almost too horrifying to contemplate. Or it could stay out and watch its credibility as a global security guarantor collapse, potentially unraveling its network of alliances across Asia and the world. Unlike past wars America has fought, distance offers no safety here. A conflict in the Pacific would be lightning fast, brutal, and technologically overwhelming. There would be no easy victories, no simple path to a resolution. While China watches and builds its strength in the Pacific, America is already deeply entangled in a major conflict in Europe. The U.S. has poured tens of billions of dollars into supporting Ukraine against Russia's invasion. This includes a massive transfer of advanced weapons, critical intelligence, and extensive training for Ukrainian forces. This support has been instrumental in weakening Russia's military and thwarting its initial objectives, but it has also exposed very real limits to Western power. Crucially, stockpiles of key munitions, like artillery shells and anti-air missiles, are shrinking at an alarming rate across the West. Defense production lines, scaled down after the Cold War, are struggling to keep up with the voracious demands of modern high-intensity warfare. And in many Western nations, a sense of war fatigue is beginning to grow among voters who question the long-term costs. The war in Ukraine has delivered a harsh lesson. Modern conventional wars are long, incredibly expensive, and politically exhausting. They don't end on Washington's timeline, and they drain resources that might be needed elsewhere. And while all eyes are on Europe and Asia, the Middle East continues to simmer, a perennial source of instability. Iran doesn't fight the United States directly in a conventional sense. It fights asymmetrically, through a network of powerful proxies: Hezbollah in Lebanon, armed militias in Iraq and Syria, and other groups targeting vital shipping lanes all serve to extend Iran's influence and put pressure on U.S. interests without triggering a direct state-on-state war. U.S. bases across the region face constant, low-level threats of attack. Israel's own complex security conflicts always carry the risk of escalation, potentially drawing the U.S. into a wider conflagration. One miscalculation, one stray rocket, one political decision could ignite a regional war. A direct conflict with Iran wouldn't be quick or clean. It would immediately disrupt global oil markets, threaten the world economy, drag in allies on all sides, and stretch already thin U.S. military forces to a breaking point. It represents a third potential front that America simply cannot afford to ignore. In this volatile landscape, NATO is often seen as America's greatest strength. It's a force multiplier without parallel in history. But it is also, potentially, America's greatest strategic obligation. The heart of the alliance is Article 5, the mutual defense clause that binds the United States to defend any member that comes under attack. This commitment is automatic. Deterrence works wonderfully, until the day it doesn't. If a NATO member, particularly one in the vulnerable regions of Eastern Europe, is tested directly by an adversary, America wouldn't be choosing to go to war. It would be legally and treaty-bound to enter one. This is the inherent danger of alliances in an unstable world. For decades, they have been the bedrock of peace and stability, preventing wars before they start. But in an era of renewed great power competition, they also have the potential to act as a tripwire, pulling the United States into a conflict it might otherwise seek to avoid. Alliances prevent wars until the day they trigger one. When you look at this global picture, China, Russia, Iran, and treaty obligations, the greatest threat to American power may not be a battlefield defeat. It may be something more insidious. Strategic overextension, the strain of trying to be everywhere at once, of managing every crisis, is immense. This isn't just a military problem. It's economic, as defense spending competes with domestic needs. It's industrial, as a defense base is asked to produce for multiple potential conflicts. And it's political, as the American public and its leaders are forced to weigh competing priorities with finite resources and attention spans. History is brutally clear on this point. No great power or empire collapses from external threats alone. It often collapses from within, by doing too much, for too long, in too many places at once. The burden of being the global policeman becomes unsustainable. Commitments made in one era become liabilities in the next. This is the classic imperial dilemma, and it's a question America must now confront. So, can the United States actually lose? In this context, losing doesn't necessarily mean a formal surrender or an enemy flag flying over Washington, D.C. It can mean something far more ambiguous, a slow erosion of power. It can mean strategic retreat from key regions of the world. It can mean a permanent loss of influence, as other powers fill the vacuum. It could mean a world of permanent instability, where American power is no longer sufficient to deter aggression or maintain order. The U.S. could theoretically win every battle it fights and still lose the larger strategic picture, finding itself in a world that is far more hostile to its interests. In an age of nuclear weapons, sophisticated cyber warfare, and weaponized economic interdependence, the very definition of victory has become dangerously unclear. The United States isn't preparing for one war. It is, by necessity, preparing for every war all at once. And that reality raises the most dangerous question of all. The question is not whether America is strong enough to fight. It clearly is. The question is whether any nation, no matter how powerful, can afford the cost of fighting everywhere at the same time. The next great power war may not look unwinnable at the start. It may only become unwinnable once it's already too late to get out. If you want more deep geopolitical breakdowns, analysis of modern warfare, and stories about global power, make sure you subscribe, because the most dangerous wars are always the ones that no one fully plans to lose.